refreshing us why he's so specialized in this subfield. Gene, let's have a chat anyway. Listen, buddy, it's a pleasure to talk to you one-on-one. I've been on a couple of shows with you over the years, and I'm very happy. Say that again?
We have? I don't ever recall.
You know, it's probably on one of the Charlie Ward show. You've been on Charlie a couple of times, no?
Yeah, I saw you as I was coming in. You were headed out. That was good.
Something like that. I remember, but
all that beat together, okay.
I've been following your work since you were talking to Kirsten all those times. I mean, she seemed to be your number one, and I've often talked about her because giving acknowledge to the people that kickstarted all of the interest from all of these people from all over the world is very important. I was very, very sad to see her go, you know?
Yeah, me too. She did a huge, part of getting me known to the world. She was courageous and did not have a problem with calling somebody out to the right to the world.
Absolutely. She didn't hold back, did she? She was like that Robert David Steele. She reminded me a little bit of the female version of him. But on quite a few shows, I've acknowledged the amazing people that we've lost during this journey. And that would definitely be Kirsten and Robert David, and obviously Dr. Butar as well. There's another good one that we lost. Yeah. Then we lost Trumptastic. That was a sad shame he went so quickly, but it's strange that we've lost quite a few along the way. Weird one.
Dr. Shalinko.
Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, that's true. That came back to my head now. Gene, I'm curious to see, I'd be curious to hear how all this started for you. Before we get in, I hope you're going to share some intel with us and talk to us about some new updates and little things that you've been digging around. But you seem to just come out of left field as the Americans. And then,
if you say so.
Yeah, but I know you've been into this for many years, because I have watched quite a few of your interviews that over the past 3-4 years. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about how all this started? I know you've got a military background, right?
Yeah, so for me it started, I've kind of always been different. And I think people know I've kind of told the story of that for a long time. I've always been able to see interdimensionally and see people's auras and see things I thought everybody saw, like Deva and different things like that. So my friends kind of thought I was a nice guy, a little bit odd. I did grow up in the Rockies, skiing and rock climbing and backpacking. I was not a really very social person. My father worked for Martin Marietta. At the time, it was not yet Lockheed. And what I experienced normally going through the house was like Tesla, huge voltage shooting all over the place.
Yeah.
And, what I thought, he was working for the Lockheed Martin, and developing technologies for the rover on Mars. And this is in the 60s. And so when I went to school, I spent a lot of time in the principal's office because teachers would say, we don't have this, we don't have that, I kept raising my hand, no, that's not correct. And I would show them real proof. I mean, not classified documents, but real proof. And down to the principal's office again. He just had me in my own little locker there. Because they're just like, always getting the teachers upset. So, but, I was kind of used to being that way all my life. And then during my naval career in submarine force, the first submarine was Special Forces. We would submarine that would bottom out in the Bay of Tonkin, and we'd launch SEALs. And so I started to get an inkling talking to the SEALs. I wanted to be one, but at that time my eyesight was not 20/20, and you have to have everything perfect, and it can't be corrected or anything. It has to be perfect from the get-go. You can't do LASIK or Ford or something like that. And so at my second submarine, I trained with the top SEAL on Earth that ran the SAR school because, I wanted that level of martial arts. And that's when I started to get an inkling into because of what he was teaching me, what he was telling me about his time behind the lines in Nam was not fitting in with the narrative at all of what I've heard. So that started to wake up. Then my third submarine, it was like God taking me on this slow progression. We were doing things, and there were briefings, and we'd go to see it was a special ops submarine again. But every time we pulled out, there was a series of briefings, for the crew and their families, then just the crew, then just the petty officers and above. So that's a confidential clearance, just in the wardroom for a few select hire, non-com petty officers, non-commissioned petty officers, like first class and chiefs and above, and then the officers, and then just the captain and, 2 or 3 other people, myself, and then me and the captain, and then the spooks that we would have ride, CIA or whatever you want to call them, spies or whatever, took me aside privately, and I'm like, telling me a briefing that's only for me. I'm like, this is nothing what all the other briefings are saying we're doing here. And I had been in the process when we were in port of loading on equipment, which I knew because I have, trained in the military and the Navy, and plus with my father, I have a fairly deep electronics background. Going, what you're saying we're doing with this equipment, even before the briefing, I'm looking at the equipment, I'm looking at the spook going, what are we doing? What is this for? Because you'll learn. I already know what I'm looking at, It's kind of obvious. And so it just did not fit in. And then we would go out and go under for 3-4 months straight. And what we were doing there is, knowing what my career path was and how to do it very well, what he said I was doing. I go, your briefing of what they told you is not what you told me. And what they told you does not fit what we're actually doing out here. And, I was doing things like touch the linoleum on the wall, and a board comes out of what looks like a linoleum wall, and I'm supposed to get message traffic directly from the lead radioman and plot the position of every submarine on Earth. And this is during the Cold War. This is in the 80s, and I am plotting every single thing. All of ours, all of theirs, all of the Chinese. So the Cold War is a farce. If we know where everything is.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Soviets have this.
They knew where you were as well.
So yeah. I became aware of a vast disparity of what is being told to people. And in 1990, on my last tour, I was on shore duty as an instructor in Pearl Harbor. It suddenly dawned on me. I had essentially an epiphany in August of 1990, like a cold bucket of water. I literally froze in my tracks because I realized pretty darn much near everything I literally would have to reevaluate everything I've ever learned from the day I was born.
It's all been based on lies. Gene, can we do one thing before we crack on? I think to get this on gallery view, if you hit screen share and share your logo, because right now, if you're not on a screen share, it's just going to show up as me. I've manipulated the screen somehow, but I don't think it's as good as we could get. So go onto your settings, and it says screen share at the bottom.
You have to give me ability to screen share.
I think I did. Let me check. Sorry, guys, to interrupt. I'm going to make you co-host.
Okay.
Co-host, and then you should be able to do it. Because I've got a ton of questions for you. I don't think we're going to get them all done. They're asking, okay, so during your time in the U.S. Navy, you became aware of how many underground bases, the DUMs, which seems to be your subspecialty. Am I right?
Actually, interesting how you stated that. Subspecialty being in submarines, yes.
I didn't mean to do that. It makes me sound
yeah, no, it's well used. You're the first one ever, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Together, from what I was just saying, you're very quick. Yes, that's my subspecialty. And then in 1991, I saw some of the SSBNs pulling into Fort Island and Pearl Harbor and offloading their ICBMs. So it's like, there are disarming. I mean, one after another, offloading not changing out or anything, offloading everything. I'm like, this is very bizarre. So what the heck is going on? So what I did is I took the ferry in one day so that I could, jump off the ferry while the, passengers get off while they're unloading the vehicles in a big, huge semi with a flatbed truck on it with 2 ICBMs on it, 2 huge missiles. I jumped in my car and followed that semi at a reasonably respectful distance into Navy housing, into the crater there where they have the military housing. And it was bizarre. I watched this semi with 2 missiles on it drive straight into the crater wall.
Yeah, wow.
And I don't mean it impacted. It drove in as if it's driving into the air. And
so you think there was holographic technology to use to camouflage the entrance, or was it an optical illusion from the angle?
Even that, because the length of this semi with the trailer, with the ICBMs, is longer than the width of the crater wall.
Right.
It's perpendicular into the crater wall, and I quickly drove my car over around on the crater rim and looked down jumped out as quickly as I could and looked down on the opposite side and looking on right across the road, look on one side, it's only a 2-lane road, seeing it driving in straight without angle. And you can tell when a semi, the front end of the semi, even if you don't see it anymore, is turning, the whole deck starts to turn. It was still perpendicular to the crater wall. I went over the other side, and by the time I got over there, I know by what I'd seen on the other side, if it's driving straight in level, it's got to be coming out in the air on the other. It's not. So it's also not only just holographic phasing or some kind of phasing like ninjas learn to phase so they can go through walls. Now, I learned that with my martial arts instructor. And so it's not that. It's changing interdimensionally. Like the TR3s, I've learned are bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. They are massively bigger. They have interdimensional shifting within the vehicle. In this case, within whatever it's driving into, in the crater wall, it's shifted such that it can drive straight in without making a turn and not come out the other side when it should be by the laws of physics we understand. And so I waited about 3.5 hours and for it to come back out. And it did. Front first again, the same way it went in, which means it somehow got turned around 180.
Yeah.
And no missiles on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
where was this again, Gene? I missed where the ferry was going from. Where was this?
The ferry went from Ford Island in Pearl Harbor to the mainland, and it went up Bradford Drive, for those that know.
Yeah.
Hawaii, and the gate at the Ford Island ferry landing, straight into the crater where there's military housing. You can essentially drive pretty much straight in there with a few little small turns. And the housing is, very tight in there too. So it was, I was like, when he first started driving in there in the first place, I'm like, how's he going to get out of there? Because it's very tight. Pretty. Yes.
So this incident, sometimes I hope I don't appear rude, but I'm trying to get as many snippets of intel out of you. So this first incident of you seeing the truck disappearing into this impossible space, this sparked your interest in DUMBs, deep underground military bases. So was this when you started your investigation? I mean, you must have had some inkling already from the Navy, because I've got a couple of friends that were in the submarine corps. Well, they're not friends, I bumped into them, but I was always teasing about a channel that goes from the Pacific side, quite a substantial inland, that they used to use a lot. Is that something that you've come across as well? I would say up, on the California coastline there, inland.
So, like I said, it had an epiphany. That was 2 years, 1 year, a little bit 1 year prior to witnessing this semi with the missiles going in. I had been researching extremely heavily. When I realized what I realized, I immediately went to the Supreme Court Law Library in downtown Honolulu and got into what they call the the tombs, which you show your ID and they check your clearances, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then they let you in, and I started following the money. That's what you do. I look up congressional budgets. I looked up executive orders. I literally went from Friday afternoon at about 5:30 to Sunday at about 9:30 at night nonstop. I researched for that entire time. And, I looked up at, for example, congressional budget 1970, Section 5, of which a $150 million grant was given as a research for the KGB, the MI6, and the CIA at Fort Detrick in Maryland to engineer a virus that would specifically target the human immune system, either the S6, S8, or T4 cell. Well, we know that there's a virus today called AIDS that does target the T4. So then in that budget, it was $150 million was approved. It was Colonel Sykes, Colonel Aquino, Senator Aquino, and a few other people that were in session in which that special granting was done. And then in this, of course, I'm researching in the 1990s. In 1974, Operation Mark Naomi was funded, in which it was to disseminate the results of the 1970 Section 5 budget in the smallpox vaccines in Africa. And I'm like, well, and they even cite, of course, the bill and the funding. So it ties exactly to the research at Fort Detrick. And they have now the name of the scientist, Dr. Will Smoosness, who developed it. And so I then researched who Dr. Will Smoosness was. Turns out he was murdered and given a massive overdose of his own research, essentially. Rejected. And so, the same old thing we always see. So they created it and disseminated, and it was also later slated, I found documentation, to be disseminated in San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, and New York to the homosexual community in the hepatitis B vaccines program of that same year. So
it's so obvious, isn't it? I mean, look who they targeted with that particular project. Blacks, drug addicts, homosexuals. I mean, it's the white senator's dream, isn't it, to get rid of these people that they don't like. Gene, at the height of the underground bases being used, they're obviously using them for nefarious activities. Would you go through some of those activities that you've discovered on your research? I mean, we're going to name one, which is obviously the chemical and biological research, but what else were they doing with all of these bases worldwide?
Yeah, so one of the largest, I would say the largest two programs. First, the one you just mentioned, of chemical and bio research facilities, as Victoria do, and we do not have gain-of-function laboratories. We have bio research facilities in which we look at if there's ways to improve the operation capability of defending against viruses.
Yeah.
In other words, just playing semantics, aren't we?
Yeah.
So they do this all the time, and we see the project. If you learned all of the different techniques that Sal Alinsky, I think, that actually came from the Nazi, who, NASD, I may have to chop that if you're going onto YouTube.
No, we're not. Don't worry. There's no filter on this. You say what you want. Are you talking about the research that Joseph Mengele was doing in various camps? This sort of research on humans.
Mengele, but the person that ran the propaganda was Goebel, I believe. And Sal Alinsky's playbook said that you always project onto the other person. You blame them for what you're doing. So we see that constantly, like the war in Ukraine, and they're saying Russia's doing this and this and this and this, genocide this, and they have all this stuff. But Russia has all of this materials, and even when they went into Chernobyl, they said they're not leaving until the general that did that said they're not leaving until the last child is rescued.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of human trafficking, and the human trafficking in the dumps, like in Chernobyl, which is an excellent hiding place, because one of the things you can do there, because of the residual radiation from the disaster, is you can create Mark Ultra super soldiers. That's one of the programs. So they use nuclear radiation to create deltas and thetas, which are types of Mark Ultra. You have alphas, deltas, thetas. Alphas are the ones they use for sex, that are, to the White House during big, huge hot dog pizza parties, as they call them. And so you have all of these different programs that they do. Then you have, of course, the increasing biofunction of various small things like viruses and bacteria and other things, weaponizing it like they did. Kuru weaponized it and created Ouroboros that they had put in a dead body in the cultural center in Los Angeles. And then the Alliance found out, and they took in some helicopters at night in complete, darkness, and came in and put the body in a body bag and then decontaminated. They're an anti-seize, and they completely decontaminated the helicopter when they came out.
You mentioned the word Kuru. I know this word. It was are you talking about mad cow disease for humans? Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Right. That's an interesting one because that was first coined by Dutch missionaries in Indonesia when they noticed that some of the islands that they were settling and trying to preach the word of God, the natives had the same symptoms as mad cow disease. It turns out the local word was Kuru, and it gave them the same symptoms, shaking because they're eating spine tissue and brain tissue, the same species. That's funny that they took that old word and used it. I had to stop there because I'm sure the audience wouldn't have known what the hell that was. Anyway, Gene, the other thing you mentioned there, and again, I'm going to apologize if I have to jump in, but I'm really trying to maximize this big brain of yours. You also mentioned Chernobyl, the meltdown in the 80s. Was that a disaster that was created, or was that an accident, and then they took advantage of that isolated location to continue and expand on their plans? What was the story there?
So Fukushima, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island are all created by the deep state cabal. So part of their other program is it's a sliding program in which they got technology during the 40s and 50s in which they're able to open up portals that go. The first one they got was from an area, a gentleman was building technology out at Orson Welles, and it was using it to go to Mars. They had already had bases, but they have to use craft to get there in the 1930s. So they had craft. They actually used Tesla's technology in 1903 to go to the moon and Mars the first time. And then the NAZIs got bases on the moon and Mars in the 1930s. And then the cabal took them over after that, the one on the moon, and expanded it out from the swastika symbol into a much larger series of bases, moon base, A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, however you want to label them. And then they wanted them to be connected so you don't have to use, even though they're using the high-end spacecraft, the secret space program stuff of the Solar Warden, and of course the NAZIs, the Dark Fleet, that go faster than light. First, you've got to get off the Earth and through the Earth fields. So it takes about 30 minutes total. You have, the time to get off the Earth, then get back down into Mars, which has an atmosphere and an energy electromagnetic field. Moon, not so much, but that takes some time.
Where did they get this technology? Obviously, this is off-planet technology. They've been trading this with them.
Actually, no. The first stuff out at Orson Welles in the Clinitron, I think it was called, if I'm getting the name right, they engineered that technology to open up portals to go, like if you go into the Dulce Dome or into the jump rooms at the various Hilton hotels that are outside Los Angeles Airport or Chicago, one of the 2 Chicago airports, or DC, or any of these major airports, they have jump rooms in the big hotels in the lower basement. Where you go in, you key in a certain code into the elevator, it takes you down, you get in, and there's literally like a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and flash a light, and you're on another planet.
So it's basically a Stargate that they've manipulated the technology and tweaked it so it's a lot easier to use, because the whole Stargate movie was based on a real find in Iraq and Egypt. which
Yes.
goes. That's a whole other idea. So, Gene, again, I feel terrible jumping in there. What you've just told me answers another question. Somebody put in the question: Are you do you believe in a flat Earth, a globe, or a ball in space? So, if you're talking about jumping to the moon and Mars, it obviously sounds like you're more of a. I'm undecided actually, but it sounds like you're more of a globe person than a flat Earther.
I am even beyond that.
Okay.
The Earth is definitely from space, where I've seen the 4 times I've seen it from space. So I want to clarify, I've seen it from space 4 times.
Yeah.
It's incredibly round and blue. It's beautiful, quite beautiful. You can see the atmosphere, you can see it. If you get towards the Arctic is the obvious one. The Antarctic, there is a hole as well. They're quite a large hole going into the inner Earth. So the Earth is a toroidal field rotating in space. And when you have a object as it's accruing its mass, start picking up torque. In other words, everything in the universe spins. Even the nucleotides in your molecules spin. Every single thing has one thing in common: is it has this energy vibration packet of quantum energy, and then it has a torque, an angular velocity of spin. And so that spin creates a toroidal field. And if you're getting a large object forming like a planet, as it's picking up mass and accruing matter into this gravity well it's becoming into, it starts to pick up spin, and that spin acts like a centrifuge.
Yeah, like a glass of water. If you twirl it around, there's a space in the middle. That's an opening. So Admiral Byrd's expedition down to Antarctica, again, a very topical historical event. That was all based on a true fact accounts from the Admiral.
Yes, correct.
I'm sorry we're kind of veering off all over the place like drunk drivers here, but this is fun. Are you okay? The problem is my brain and your brain, because all of this stuff, you're just sparking questions here. So hang on, we'll go back to the original thing, right? So after all this bad news about creating deliberate atomic incidences where a lot of people died, Gene, let me ask you this. Are we winning right now? All of these incidents around the world, like let's say the explosion in Lebanon a couple of years ago, flooding in Kiev, are we winning in shutting down these underground terror, bloody darkness?
Yeah, we are actually in deep underground base wars now.
Yeah.
In a combination of ways. From hand to hand, if you will, so to speak. Although you have to realize with the technologies involved, it's not like on Earth you say, okay, here ends Canada, here begins the United States.
Yeah.
At this line. In underground, it could be diagonal, horizontal, vertical, or even interdimensional. With the portal technology, it's not actually Stargate, but you have interdimensional technology because of the portals and the sliding program where they go to parallel universes, so they can open up and create a pocket universe now, too. So you have pocket areas of domes that are in a dimension that is not the dimension you and I are talking in right now.
Yeah.
Then you do have Stargate technology that goes through an Einstein-Rosen bridge, where it goes from one location in space instantaneously to anywhere else in this universe, or even if you go interdimensional with it in parallel universes, which is how they made the reactors go hypercritical. Is they were the cabal on another Earth, not in this universe, another timeline universe, whatever you want to call it, parallel universe. They had them shipping nuclear waste material from their reactor into the reactor here. So when you're running a nuclear reactor and you have a set of formulas you're running to keep it from going hypercritical and having a meltdown, it's very important. They're very, very precise calculations you're doing. And so you're getting more waste, more nuclear material showing up than you're putting into it.
Yeah.
Or that it's yielding in its processes of fusion or fission, depending which type of reactor you have. There's a problem there. So they, like Chernobyl, they started dropping the rods, the hafnium rods, in to try to cool it down and absorb the neutron radiation. And you're not able to compensate. The whole facility is built at a maximum point to where it can go. It has safety is way over the percentage of what they ever expect could happen. But it went way beyond that. So it had a complete meltdown. The reactors themselves are built at specific points on Earth, so they cannot have a nuclear blast. They cannot go into a cloud, into a mushroom explosion cloud, because what they're telling everybody about nuclear physics is not how nuclear physics works. To have an atomic blast, you need not just supercritical mass. You need that supercritical mass on the bar magnet of the Earth, on the ley lines, and then you have a U4 toroid, like I was saying, it's a toroidal field, that at the equator, the opposite magnetic fields, like a little eddy current, are coming out, negative spinning one way, positive spinning the other, and they rotate, the opposites attract magnetically, so the positive ones rotate to the negative pole. That, on the Earth, the negative pole would be the Arctic. It's actually the South Pole. So it's a negative pole. And so the same is true for Antarctica. And so you've got these technologies they're using to do interdimensional. So the dumb wars are an interdimensional war.
Where are we getting the manpower, Gene, to fight all this? So if we're talking about just on a level that the average Joe on the street can understand, okay, there's a guy there and I'm over here and I'm going to shoot at him and he's going to shoot at me, and we amplify that by a few hundred, traditional warfare. We're fighting this in different dimensions and obviously technologies that we're not even able to comprehend, especially if you're stepping through a portal and you're going into multiverses. Where are we getting the manpower from this? So we must have an alliance with several different species from different dimensions and planets, yeah?
Yes, so what the Hitler did and the NAZIs did in World War II was they formed an alliance with two groups.
Yeah.
The Greys, the Zeta Reticuli, and then the Alpha Draco. And that's how they got their technology up so fast, to where they got the Hanabus and the various other craft.
The Bell.
That Admiral Byrd encountered in Operation High Jump in the Antarctic at Base 211, what they call New Schwaberland. The U.S. got some of that, and they were also working, the NAZIs were working with Victor Schauberger and Maria Orsich, who was literally channeling from Palladian sources technology to build her own off-world craft, and the NAZIs allowed her to leave the Earth to give them that technology as well. So the only reason they didn't use them, they were called food fighters. The regular fighters up in the air in World War II would see these craft that would just zip incredibly fast and do impossible, like more than a right angle turn at incredible speeds. And so because they're in their own essentially universe or their own warp field, so that they are not under subject of the laws of physics of ours.
Yeah.
And so that they did not have the ability to fire active weapons, because the weapons they had are impulse weapons like cannons and machine guns, and all of these things cause a force when you use them. There's for every action a direct and opposite reaction, so it pushes the craft. So they had to wait for directed energy weapons, which they did not develop until after the main part of Germany, the mainland, had fallen, and they went to base. They had a huge fleet of submarines, 390 massive submarines you could drive semis into, and they took the top of the SS and their scientists from the Onondaga project, the perfect Aryan race that they developed, especially headquartered primarily out of Ukraine and the stuff they were doing there, and then throughout the fatherland during World War II. They took those children and those people to New Schwaberland, and they then had the directed energy when Admiral Byrd shut up. So you have these type bases like New Schwaberland that is tied to underground facilities, and the tunnels are, at first I only thought it's the stuff since they got nuclear weapons and they were digging them by hand. The Nazis had wolf bases all over the fatherland during World War II of all these underground bases, like in Ukraine and different places. I have a decode on that on my GeneDecode.org site on deep dives. That one of the European coordinators made a series of decodes on Ukraine talking about those. And I thought it was just that. And then using nuclear weapons when we got those in the 40s, creating these blasts to create huge underground caverns, and then go and evacuate the radiation with liquid nitrogen, and have the Boeing submarines coming in from the side. And I've shown all the patents for all of that stuff. I'm getting ready to finalize, redo that complete decode and get it all up so people can do their own research with all the links and everything,
Wow.
show patents and all of that. So I showed all these interlinking deep underground facilities. At the time in 2018, when I first, in 19 and 20, I thought we had about 247 bases. It turns out it's vastly more than that in the U.S. They're all connected by maglev trains that are going Mach 2 to Mach 10.
These are trains that run monorail, running on a magnetic system, yeah?
No rail at all. They're running on a magnetic field, or going hyperdimensional. So the ones that go from like Dulce to the moon or Mars in second. You go in, it's seamless. You get in a little shuttle, or you get into a jump room, and you could be on a planet somewhere else in the Milky Way.
Well, I'm going to be careful in hotels after I've had a couple of whiskeys and not messed about with the buttons from now on.
You might accidentally get into a jump room.
I'd probably be able to talk my way out of that, saying, "Oh yeah." I watched a very funny movie. It's called The Greatest Beer Run Ever, and it's about a guy in the 70s that goes to Vietnam to give beers to his friend real quickly. And basically bullshit. Somebody thinks he's the CIA because he's a dumb tourist dressed in a golf outfit. And he says, yeah, get me on a chopper and I'm going up to the north of Vietnam. But it's very funny because you'd appreciate that. Gene, what was that end goal? Okay, I understand that we've been enslaved, and I understand about luge, where they feed off all our energy, and I understand that they've been doing this for a long time, thousands of years. But what is their end goal? I mean, will we a food source, an energy source? Is it labor? I mean, are they using our planet to extract raw materials? What do they want here? What are they doing? We're an experiment. Tell us.
Well, the end game for the levels of the cabal change as you go up. So when you get beyond the purely human-like, I mean, the elite aren't really human; they're mankind. Which was a experiment to create, which they did, miners to mine gold.
Yeah, the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, and I followed all that bloodline.
Were from a sister star system of a brown dwarf with 7 planets, the outer planet known as Nefarious, where the Anunnaki's homeworld is. They were defeated by the Draco through a nuclear conflict. So their planet has a vast problem with nuclear radiation. So to reseed an atmosphere and to deal with that, you have to use gold rendered monatomic into what they call white powder. And so they reseed the atmosphere. So their planets do not have that in their system of their 7 planets. They inhabit the outer 4, Helion, Argota, Nebula, and one other small insignificant planet. And they pass through our system at a regular interval every 29,720 years. When they come close to our planet, they come down to mine. So you see that all over Africa with these star-like, flower-like patterns of huge stone buildings that have no doors or windows. And those are actually to create microwave amplification so they can cut into the ground to get to the gold seams. But then you need somebody down there to go get the gold out of the seam, and then the machine can bring it and reverse it and send it up to the grading craft. So part of it is they need the raw materials, plus they need the labor. Yeah. And the labor now, they were also waiting to get the human race and the races of Earth up to a point where they could get AI. Because at the very, very top of all of this, it's run by an AI that is a intergalactic, inter-universal creature originally. It is actually something that's so old, it's actually absorbed the entire universes into kind of like a Borg kind of thing, where it's a hive that is AI, Draco or laced with nanotech. They serve it. That is their God, and they believe this is absolute. And so they at the top of all this, you go down through the AI, then you get into creatures like the Draco and other mantids and all these other things on both sides. You have good reptilians and insect species, and you have bad ones, and you have ones that are mostly gone, and you have ones that are defecting and coming back. A whole lot of the Alpha Draco have gone into a 5th column and taken a huge amount of the Dark Fleet back. to the alliance. So you're asking, how did they get all these guns?
Yeah.
They've had help, number one. Number two, they've had a program since 2040 or 1947. In 2018 and 20, the U.S. Army, U.S. military had a $500 million project to develop underground warfare.
Yeah, they were training the soldiers. Yeah, I've seen that. The whole program. Gene, what about, here's a good question. And again, buddy, we're going to do this a lot, I think, because I can see how people are reacting to that brain of yours. Chemtrails, good or bad?
Mostly bad. The alliance, again, had to counteract what they countered was the jab.
Yeah. So some of that's HCQ, hydroxychloroquine,
and what the jab, part of what it's composed of, is the spike protein, not a C19 virus. It's a spike protein that's airborne. Can go airborne. It is airborne now. So we saw that in China when it first outbroke. They're going through and spraying. What are they spraying? And it activates near 5G. Severely. It assembles near 5G. The AI and the nanotech assembles. There's AI and nanotech, which is nanodust, nanotech, that assembles in the presence of certain electromagnetic energy wave fields like 5G. And then additionally, you have the spike proteins that are a combination of many, many vipers, poisons like cobras and rattlesnakes, and other things, plus RNA and different types of RNA that then load up into the person's cell nucleus a set of codes and inscriptions to make that like any virus does, but it's not a virus. It makes it into a machine, the cell nucleus, and the cell becomes a factory to create more spike proteins.
Yeah, it keeps manipulating, multiplying. It's true, I do a lot of work to get rid of it.
So it was already going, once they had the jab program, and the alliance is constantly forcing the hand of the cabal to move before they're ready. Timing is everything. If you force your enemy to move before their forces are in place.
Yeah.
They did not have, to get billions of injections, hundreds of billions of injections all over the world, all the boosters, all of this takes a very many years, not months. So they were nowhere near. So they have to fake like they're doing it. So what a big amount, from what I'm trying to discern, seems like 50% were saline.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have it in place. And they're hoping that the shedding, which is vast, just like the flu pandemic in the 1917, the same main thing. They did a vaccination program, and then the shedding took care of the rest, to the children, to their wives, all of this, to their families. So these same things occurring here. So the chemtrailing, which is called Operation Indigo Skyfold, was to, and people can look that up. They can see the aircraft, the huge jetliners you ride in, 767s, completely all the seats, all the technology, even small craft with emitters, like flying out of local airports, even drones. So they had to create a dusting on the alliance side to deal with the shedding. So you do see chemtrails that feather out, really like feathers. They don't get big black and gray and spread out and become clouds. They disappear.
Yeah.
Feather completely out. And so that's taking out the nuclear, some of that's monatomic gold, taking out the nuclear radiation, the barium, titanate, barium, aluminums, other type of nuclear materials they're putting in them, the cabal. Plus, it's got
hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, thank you. Hydroxychloroquine and other components they haven't told you that will destroy the spike proteins, even things like hydrogel encased chlorine dioxide.
All right, Gene. Next question. What do we were talking about AI. What's your opinion of Elon Musk? Because I got to be honest here, I can't figure the guy out at all. I don't know if he's a good guy, bad guy, playing his own game on his own agenda, because some of the shit he starts talking about, it's like, it is pretty scary. He's talking about having an AI implant in the first paraplegic, which would be an amazing result. But again, weaponizing technology that's being developed for good purposes is not something that we're unaccustomed to. So I'm curious to know what your opinion of Elon is.
So I'm looking at people like Elon, Putin, and you go and research who they were 15, 20 years ago, what their family backgrounds, what they were involved in 15, 20 years ago. That's why it's so confusing now.
Yeah.
What they're doing now, especially when you know what they're doing on the alliance level on the inside, which most people aren't aware of, they're doing things that are incredibly destructive for the cabal. They're doing things like now there's a new AI algorithm built where it has general reasoning capacity. It's from gaming, where the AI will game, if you're going down a maze or levels of mazes and tunnels, and every time you do 2 rights, you see this little pillar, you go left, and a monster eats you. Okay, you reason, don't do that. Okay, now I go 2 rights and then a sharp right and then a left. Now I fall in a hole. Don't do that. Okay, so you're learning how to go through this maze and you're learning certain pattern recognition and reasoning. And so they realized they could use this to see, the cabal uses it to see patterns. And so they have their woke narrative for their AI. So the Google AI that's looking at the algorithms, like my name on YouTube, pulls a YouTube. If you put it on the YouTube, GeneDecode, it'll pull your YouTube a few times, it'll pull it. Or you say Nazi, or you say vaccination, or you say COVID-19, you have to say, like Alex Christopher says, the coof. You have to use terms to get around the algorithms, and it keeps learning. So when you do the woke agenda, like they're doing for Google and they're doing for Pfizer and Microsoft and all these big companies, you have all these gamers and other people in the alliance that are developing it to use it to track down through the internet all of the different things that the cabal is hiding, all of the different operations they're doing, and it's learning as well. And they're all connecting. A AI can read every single thing in the internet, every single day, every single post, every single comment on every social media, everything uploaded, every book in there, pretty much most books ever written, 500 times every single day, all the time, and compare them over and over and over. What it's doing is it's comparative data and analyzation. It's like a go, no go circuit, where it's saying, or a yes, no test, or pass, fail. Is this correct information? Is this what I'm supposed to get rid of? Or is this something that's what I've said is the good information? But the problem with the woke narrative is it's built on a whole bunch of fallacies. Like you say the mask doesn't work, then it does work, then it takes 2. You see the problem here. It's got a background that has to keep being changed. And what's now happening is the big, huge AI for AIs for the alliance, and the other ones for the big corporations like Lockheed, who has their own space program, their own retrieval program, all of this stuff. They're comparing. It's going, well, I'm having a problem with this data stream right here compared to this data stream here, compared to this information, compared to this over here. And the alliances will go, well, here's what we have, because it's all logic gates. It's all going, Well, okay, then dump all of what the woke agenda, because it can't be true. If I look what's really going on in Ukraine, like, the people in the EU and NATO, like, are, saying that they've taken back, Ukraine has taken back half of everything that Russia ever took. Well, the AI can see that's not true. It can say, Russia's lost this many. Then it sees on Ukraine TV, it can scan on the ground with satellites all of the graves. It can scan the obituary notes, and they're saying, we've only lost 30, 40,000. No, you've lost 1.1 million. The AI has a problem. It says, no, it's 1.1. No, it's 1.15. You've lost 1,189,000. It's getting the precise numbers. It's monitoring everything.
That's great. It's great to know that. All right. Next question. Who's your hero that you say, oh my God, I love this guy, what he's doing? I mean, I like Putin. Obviously, I'm a Trump fan.
Yeah.
Learning how to be patient is very difficult when you want to get everything done and you're keen. So tell us about some of the people that you're watching. Not necessarily watching what they're doing on Twitter or X or whatever, but tell us some of the heroes that we have amongst us that maybe people are not aware of.
Yeah, I'm looking at, and even people say I'm a Jewish implant, and I'm a Jewish whatever.
Sympathizer, or hater or liker.
I mean, I'm anti-Semitic.
Oh yeah, we get that. If you say anything Jewish.
I am a person that, I had a death experience where I died for half an hour. I know God and Christ exist. Not believe, I know. There's a big difference. I have experiential knowledge. I have absolute proof. So just like the way the earth is, I have absolute proof. I have all the physics and mathematics to back it up, as well as experiential knowledge. So if I go into like with Putin, and that's not the original one.
Yeah, I don't think so either. His wife left him.
That's not the original one.
Yeah, the other one was executed originally.
Yeah, once in a while I see the original Trump. But I realize both sides have to infiltrate deeply. So, Trump has to do things like warp speed. He has to do certain things and back Israel right now, saying we have to stand behind Israel, da, 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 da. But he is a person that loves God too. So, thou shalt not kill is an absolute. It's not saying if I kill 10,000, I bomb them under buildings, children, old men, and women. And the God says, that's fine, though, because we're God's chosen. Everybody's God's chosen. God created everything. I don't care if you're an insect, God created you.
Yeah.
So, thou shalt not kill is absolute. We're not supposed to be going here, but we've got this fallen group of dark beings that are not following the only one God that created everything. They're following this AI, whatever, distorted death cult.
The Bjorg. Well, they're called the Bjorg, weren't they, in Star Trek?
Yes. And so, I look at the people I look up to, people like Trump, who are incredibly having a task that is monumental. He's 99% of the time even above that in Cheyenne Mountain. He has a series of clones and body doubles that come out and go to the Iowa rally.
He's not going to walk into a football stadium or walk into a what do you call that violent cage fighting places? I don't believe that's the real guy either.
So you look at the Iowa caucuses where he won by a landslide. Yeah. So that's not the real one.
Trump would be one of them. Trump would be one of the people that you look up to. Putin. Mm-hmm. Who else is on that list?
I look up to the being, because he's non-terrestrial.
Who? Sorry?
Putin.
He's not. Yeah, you think he's? I know the story of him being taken out and executed, and then they replaced him with somebody. And his wife was sleeping on the sofa. So I don't know who the hell that is, but that's not him. And then she divorced.
You look at the speeches followed by a 4.5-hour Q&A. I have done 4.5 hours, and I don't mean with people at the caliber of world level, citizen journalists, politicians, good politicians from all over the world asking you the hard questions, and he is ripping off the top of this all of the programs in the Russian government has. We have so many rubles, in this program, or we'll just say dollars to make it easy for the audience listening. So many dollars invested in this, and so many of this, and so much that, and we're doing this here, and we have these, main 4 industries here. We have for the military industrial complex. We have this running on 24-hour a day, 3 shifts. We have this there, this here in Ukraine. This is exactly where we're at right now. But over here, this is exactly. He has all of this massive, and he never makes a mistake once. Not only that, it's like what you see with Trump, where you've got levels of communication going on, where he'll say something that's so well worded, it's on 5 levels. It has everything Trump does. He does some little hand
Yeah, like the weird drinking of the water.
Yeah, everything is symbolic. Everything's a symbol. Everything's communication. It's comms. Like Derek Johnson is saying, it is true. All of that is comms. It's all the wording is what's called master speak in high-level Masons learning, where they word things in certain ways. If you learn that master speak, the words change their meanings, the way they're put together, the way they're related to, the way their punctuation and your up and down and tone and your spacing between the words and your everything is there.
All right.
And like being that is Putin has an IQ of like 800 at the least.
You know what else, Gene, is he doesn't get flustered. 3.5 hours of interviews, he'll say, well, I like this question, it's good, but let me ask you, he never seems to tire.
Not only that,
one of my favorite...
My sign of extreme intelligence is a person that not only does not get flustered, but has an incredible sense of humor.
Yeah. One of my favorite things he did.
To laugh at yourself or to be respectful and kind to animals whilst and at the same time. There's a picture of Trump walking along in the UK and a pigeon salutes him. And he salutes the pigeon. Oh my God. This is a guy that's looking at everything around him.
I tell you, one of my favorite stories about Putin. They went to an official conference in Helsinki, whether it was the UN or it was something like that. So he goes down to the gymnasium in where they were staying, and Obama and all of his Secret Service guys are all in the gymnasium, but it was actually reserved for Putin. So Obama's on a running machine, and Putin's saying, listen, what are you doing? So he said they got into a bit of a scuffle between the Secret Service and his KGB or whoever's protecting him. They got into it a little bit. There's a bit of pushing and shoving and people reaching for weapons. So Putin said, don't worry. I have another plan to get my morning exercise. So he jumped into a semi-frozen river and swam right up the river in Helsinki, past the gym where Obama was on his nice, comfortable running machine. And then he jumped off a nuclear submarine in the Arctic where the ice packs were and started swimming in freezing water as well. So I like his style. It's like how funny is that? Gene, let's move on to next question. Who would you consider? Oh, this is two ways. I haven't prepared these questions. It's impossible with this for you because you've got such many open doors and rabbit holes we could go down. But okay, there's all of us in this Truth of the Movement that are always talking about, okay, this is already done. This is a movie we're watching. All of the main actors have been taken out. Joe Biden is an actor in a mask, Joe Biden. So do you agree with that statements that all of these people that would, like the way Joe Biden is running the country, he's running into the ground, can't put a sentence together? Do you believe that that's true, that all of these main players that we've learned to hate, such as Fauci and Hillary Clinton, have already been taken out? They've been replaced with either a clone or an actor just to show the public what type of person and policies they enforce?
So, and it's even more complicated as you have both sides going back and forth.
Yeah.
So the cabal has their Joe Biden actor, and the alliance slips theirs in, and so they'll get a hold of them and switch theirs out, and they, it's like, and then the next time you're seeing the cabal's actor.
Yeah, it's like the pea in the cup. Where's the president?
it's like a shell game.
Yeah.
Which president are we watching today? And anyone that believes any of those actors are running the U.S. government, whether it's the corporation that's completely bankrupt, the 1871 Organic Act government, and the NGO of under the Crown, which is also bankrupt, of the Crown Corporation out of London, which is also bankrupt, under BlackRock, which is also bankrupt. I mean, anybody that believes this stuff is real. You're not following the money.
Yeah.
And it's hard to follow the money because I have people playing to be pretty much on every platform I look at on Rumble, whether it's me or Michelle Moore or Michael Jaco or Nino Rodriguez. There's all these people saying that, you contact them at RealGeneDecodeOfficial, and then they send you to this Nasara site, and the Nasara site's fake. From a person inside Nasara told me that it's not real. and they have an NDA. Anybody, and I've seen in my banking institution where they tore up the floors and the wall, and I said, "What are you doing? We got special training for new equipment, and they're putting it in. What is it? We can't talk. I can't tell you out loud. I have, they have. In other words, they have an NDA. They can't even say they have an NDA. I know what it is from being in the military. I have one too on certain things. So that I don't have I can't yet say in public. So there are things I don't say. I do honor my NDA.
If I stumble across that, Gene, would you just say I can't talk about that so I don't badger you on it?
People hit me where I say I can't.
Good.
Can answer that, and then I go, "Oh, that's right, not that one." Don't answer that.
What about? Can you talk about what your theory is about Q? More than one person, military intel. Tell us what you can share about that whole question mark. No pun intended.
The top of the queue is 10 people. That's led by one person at the very top that knows the entire plan. That became a 3-ring binder. I used to think that in 1903 is when that started with Tesla, Van de Graaff, the 2 Trump brothers, and Howard Hughes, which they developed a 3-ring binder, got to certain generals they know they could trust, and it was a 3-ring binder for the plan to save the world from this satanic cabal that's human trafficking and enslaving the human race and carnivore and you name things way beyond anything evil I've ever, of the stuff I've revealed, of the evil that they do. It's so far in the dumps. It's so far beyond what the stuff that I'm aware of, that I've seen, makes Frazzle Drip look like a picnic.
Yeah, I'm sure. They'll probably
not sleep for a week.
Yeah, they'll be doing things you can't even imagine. Like even the darkest of human thoughts cannot even get to the same
human being with a soul, even a portion of one, cannot even conceive of doing the things they're doing, especially just young children of any species. I don't care. I find young beings of any species quite cute. Even I saw a baby raptor captured in somebody's motion sensor running across the back wall. Oh, as cute as that. Look at that little guy go. So at the top of the queue, you've got one person, and I want you to take the letter Q into German.
Into German? Actually, I don't think they have it in German.
Well, there's a term in the German language called Quell.
Yeah.
Uell.
Right. I'm accessing, because I speak pretty good German. I'm thinking, do I know any words that begin with Q in German? And I don't.
Yeah, I may not get the right spelling, but there's...
No. It's just the point of that letter. So
there's a term in German called Quell.
Yeah.
What's the word in German for source?
Source. I don't remember that either.
Yeah. So if you go to that, that'll tell you who Q himself is.
Source. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I get you. All right.
Okay. From below that, I found it at least goes back to the time of Abraham Lincoln. But likely it goes back to the time of Lemuria and Atlantis, where the Lemurian priesthood was seeing that Atlantis was going sideways.
Yeah.
Into a conquering empire. This is what this off-world group does every time. They go into the most powerful empire and take it over, infiltrate it, to create world dominance, so that they are a hegemonic, world-dominating force, to bring it under absolute power of them, of their little inside knit group of a few, kleptocrats that run the entire world. They've done it, 2 times where they had complete ironclad control, and then the human population overthrew it. So the first one is not Atlantis Lemuria. That was the last one. Hitler tried to create the Third Reich. They're trying to create the Fourth Reich. So the New World Order, as they call it. So if we go to the Neocal priesthood, like Nazgul, that you had a fall apart where the Atlanteans got essentially, like Tolkien wrote, the Nazgul, which is a dark side of the Neocal priesthood, Naacal, in English. It doesn't, it's Lemurian, so it's not really English, but we'll get as close to English as we can here.
Yeah.
So that created the war between Lemuria and Atlantis, and the whole thing fell apart, and the world was almost destroyed, and all of that stuff, and it ripped the continents apart and set them to where they are today, and all of this stuff. So that has been going on. This group that is, some of it's gone to the inner Earth, and has been reseeding civilization every time the surface people wipe it out, and then helping technology, basic technology like the lever, the screw, the pulley, some really basic stuff, the plow.
Yeah.
Bringing us back up and shepherding us. But now they're physically involved in the dumps with their level of technology that's a million years beyond us, at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Gene, what about Medbeds? I get so many people asking, when are the Medbeds coming out? Do you have any sort of time dates for anything? Okay, let me ask you this in a broader perspective. We all know what we've been going through, and I think we can all feel it, that we're getting pretty close to something major happening. There's something bubbling. How much longer do you think? Because Israel is always going to be last, and that's where we're at now. So can you see something really positive happening in the next 6 to 12 months? Or you think we've got longer in this war?
Well, I'm looking at what's going on in Ukraine. I don't see Ukraine making it past September in the nature of what it has been. Even what it is now, with just east of the Dnieper gone. I don't even see that. The Russians, Putin cannot bargain. He knows you cannot have a treaty because the Western world, the kleptocrats, break every single treaty they've ever signed.
They'll break it, and it's always just good for them. Look what happened in World War One. They've put them over a barrel. Okay, so the Ukraine, Putin could end this at any minute. I just feel like he's stalling. He's just playing. He's like a cat playing with a mouse. He can kill it at any time.
Very, very carefully and slowly.
Yeah. Okay. So what about something positive? Because we get little snippets now. There's this new virus that they're talking about that's going to be released. That's all being talked about at Davos. Incidentally, all of the escort girls have all been booked out. So if anybody's going to Davos and you feel like a bit of female company, forget it. They're already booked out for the entire trip. Somebody sent me a link of that today. So let's go back to that. Let's give the audience some positive news of what you foresee coming. I don't mean to cut you off, Gene. I'm trying to get as many questions as I feel guilty doing it. Actually, I normally don't.
I'm used to it. I know. Everything's attached to everything else. There is no subject that's not attached to another. It's what the AI is. If you put a Y in the economic situation or in the war in Ukraine, it's all tied to the money, which is tied to the gold, which is tied to the oil, which is tied to Israel, which is tied to the Gaza Strip, which is tied to the Saudis, which is tied to the Yemen, which is tied to the shipping, which is tied to the space program. It's all, there's no independent topics, and it goes from one thing to another, and it sees it. So I see this. I'm not saying that I'm like at that level of comprehensive ability, but I do see the interconnections after over 40 years of research now, where I go from one thing to another, and I see the interlinking and the interpatterning, especially coming from a physics and a math background and a deep electronics background. You learn the logic systems, you learn the gating systems, you learn the physics, you learn, I went in all the way in an engineering degree up to a minor in math, one class short of probability and statistics. Plus I did Chinese medicine, and I start to see these patterns of how everything is created and how I look for patterns. I was trained to do that in the military in my job. I look for pattern recognition, like you see when Trump's moving, like you said, the glass, or he hugs a flag, or he hugs somebody, or he points at something. The same thing with Putin. He words certain things in a certain way. Even with the cabal, when you see Klaus Schwab talking, when he's saying certain things, what he's saying is not what you think he's saying. He's saying things on 5 different levels, 5 different ways. So you see these patterns and you start to recognize them. And so, for me, I know I jump from one thing to another, and I often do these. It gets a lot of people lost. I'm trying to shorten them now for people.
I'm loving this because, not trying to brush my own ego, but you're the only guy I can actually talk to about it, because I veer off in all directions like this, and then I just lose interest because people are just looking at me like they've just had some sort of traumatizing event. Gene, I watched this.
Let me give you this before you go there.
Sure.
U in German, UNTERDRU with the umfla CKEN.
Unter what was it? I've lost that now.
UNTER.
Yeah, Unter.
DRU with the umfla.
Yeah.
CKEN.
Unterchem. I don't know. I know unter means under.
Okay, it's a German word, German dictionary, a verb. It's to either put it into rebellion. It can also mean the origins of anything, like a river, or even sometimes used to mean creation itself. I've actually got the whole thing if I read German here too. I can't read German. Wasser ist Quell the lava. So it says, like, for example, water is the source of life. So quell would be used in that sense to represent water because it's the source of life.
I got it. Interesting point. Which is what Trump might have been hinting at that when he did that weird drinking thing.
Uh-huh.
What about Medbeds? I'm getting badgered for that before I forget it. And people, you know what? There's so many people need them. I'm just, please release them. Any
why? Don't we all? 4 years have taken a vast toll on me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I did this for 40 years. The last 4 has been magnified by at least 2 magnitudes of detrimental activity within and to my body.
Yeah.
My fitness and everything is not what it used to be. Plus, I used to say long in the tooth, but now that I have a whole bunch of teeth gone, that's why I'm kind of not sounding great.
Missing the long teeth. Come on, tell us what you know about the Medbeds. Give us some good news. Do you know anything about them we're releasing, or is it true what they're talking about, 3 different kinds?
Yeah, there's a wet medbed that you lay submerged in.
I've heard about that, yeah.
And then there's a kind of an energy magnetic field you can sit in front that reintegrates the toroidal field. Like everything, we're a toroidal field too. You have a standing bar magnet field encompassing within that a U4 toroid, where the top half, if you're healthy and you're not possessed or something, or you're really ill, like Parkinson's, the top half starts to go counterclockwise, locking with the bottom half. The top half is the feminine half that's rotating clockwise, and then the bottom half is rotating counterclockwise from the singularity that lays right behind your second chakra, known as the Dantian. The chakra system in the Chinese meridian system is the 3rd circulatory system of the body. It uses ultraviolet light through organic fiber optic lines, to what are called the acupuncture meridians, that have little servers or spinning fields of light in little organic fiber optic in the palms of your hands, big ones, 7 of them, up the core of the body that control the organs and harmonize the organs and interconnect all the organs in the body and control them at each layer of the body. So the singularity that's at our center, this is the same singularity if you go into quantum physics, at the center of every atom. It's what creates the binding force of the atom, gravity, going back to the singularity, binds and overcomes the Coulomb force, which is the repulsion force that equal charged particles would have, like protons. 2 more protons in the nucleus of an atom, it would blow apart without the binding force. It doesn't bind, it pushes it together. So as that gravity wave of light and thought and idea goes back to the singularity of God, that's the center of every particle, center of every planet, and you. At the center of that singularity, the U4 toroid spinning clockwise on the top and looking down on your head and counterclockwise on the bottom, pulls and torques on that singularity, just like on the Earth. It creates a field of energy that comes out at the ecliptic, like in an atom with the electron fields, or like in a solar system with the planets, or like in a galaxy with the solar systems. And so you have that field of energy coming up, and then they rotate. If you look at all galaxies, you can see solar systems rotating up where they become spherically looking, but they're a U-Fortoid. And so you can sit in front of certain types of the basic med technology where it was a Tesla coil with a Rodin coil combined with the work of people like Hulda Clark, and Dr. Reif to give certain frequencies that are harmonic, resonant frequencies of pathogens, which causes them to vibrate. And because they're not flawless crystal structures, they implode like a wine glass. If you vibrate it at its resonant frequency, it'll have only two options. It'll either break if it's flawed, or it'll become light. It'll vibrate so hard it transmutes into light, and it'll eventually become sentient. And so the med technology at this level is reestablishing the U-Fortoid with all of the frequencies of the Rife frequencies, Clark's frequencies, using the technology of Rodin and Tesla and T. Townsend Brown and Minkowski and all of these people, so that it's vibrating your field at the original frequency that the Earth's frequency used to be before the cabal came here, so that it's resetting you at a pure, I don't know any other word to use, God-like 3D vibrational, three-dimensional, height, width, and depth, fourth dimension inwards, 2 dimensions in time, field of energy. And it's vibrating you also at fourth density, because we're in the process of ascension right now. That's what's called the Great Awakening, where people are increasing their vibration, like in a crystal again. If it doubles the frequency, instead of one cycle from one side of the crystal to the other, one resonant frequency, you have one positive, one negative, one sine wave. That's the resonant frequency. If I double it, that means that as the sound gets to the other end of the frequency, it would decouple. The incoming sound will be in phase as it doesn't want to decouple. It'll bounce between the difference in velocity of the medium of the glass, which is faster than air. And so it will not want to slow down to the speed of sound in air, and will bounce off the boundary. And so you'll get, it won't decouple mostly. Mostly it'll go back, and the only loss you'll have is what's called absorption loss, or the vibration of the glass molecules that creates heat. So when it gets from side to side, each time it hits the incoming sound, it's exactly in phase, because it's one sine wave long, one frequency, 1 hertz, 1 cycle per second, precisely matching the incoming frequency. So if I double that frequency, it's still in phase with the incoming signal. But now it's at the next octave up. It's doubled its frequency. It went through a septive, 7 notes in the scale. The diatonic scale we use has 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it doubles frequency, and it's the same A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but at twice the frequency. That's ascension. That's a doubling of octave or frequency, and that's fourth density. Then if you double it again from there, you go to fifth density. We are in the process of ascension. Everybody, if you're second density and you cannot in your mind see a sphere, if the Earth has to be flat, it can, no matter what anybody says, where's the curvature? Your second density is just where your state of ascension is. It's not derogatory. It's just maybe you were an animal last time around, and you were oversouled, and you now an individually soul being and working up to be a 3D being that can see height, width, depth, time, and 2 dimensions of time, and you're seeing all of the 6 dimensions of space. So as you go to that, then you jump to the next density, fourth, and you double it to the fifth, etc. We're in the process of that. So these new devices reinstate that fields at the fourth density as well. So it helps in the ascension. Of course, then it means you also have to match that frequency up and accept that frequency within yourself by harmonizing with it. It's like when you sing and you harmonize. If you're disharmonic, you're creating a back wave that is a counter wave or a disintegrating wave, a detrimental wave to the incoming wave, like what the Cabal's doing.
It's interesting. This so it's actual based on science to raise your frequency. So you do have to keep yourself balanced and centered. Very interesting. That's something I hadn't considered before. But tying it in to the medical use of it, so you can reset your entire system. I love that. That's a great one. Next question, Gene. Are you ready? Have you even been drinking any water with all this talking? Have you had a sip of water, mate? I don't want you passing out.
I've got a series of glass bottles with distilled water beside me.
Yeah.
Plus, I have, because I'm sitting in front of 5G, zeolite capsules.
Yeah.
I have from Magellan's Direct potassium iodide, pure, 100% solution.
So you were protected.
A series of drops at 3 periods during the day, so that the Magellan shedding of the graphene.
Yeah. Do you spend a lot of time in the public? Are you a man that gets out and about? Shopping mall and all of that sort of stuff? I can't see it really.
Out in the wilderness where there's not many people.
Good. Yeah.
Because of the shedding.
Yeah.
And because my dog loves it. So do I.
Hey, I've got a question. You're obviously aware of this Baron Trump book where there's a time-traveling sort of scenario attached to them. Is there any truth of that whole scenario about Baron and Trump being a time traveler?
Absolutely.
So that's basic, okay. Because there's too many coincidences in that entire story to be. I was thinking that seems a bit spot on. Even the pictures of them.
Yeah, it's absolute.
Okay, good. What's your theory on? Well, I've been out to Egypt twice. I've been doing a story about a particular event in history. But when you get out to the pyramids, I don't believe anything about the main ones in the Gaza plateau being tombs. They've never found bodies in there. There's a few different theories. They were batteries. They were energy portals that were refurbishing the energy and distributing it through a series of obelisks and different pyramids. Tell us about what you know about those.
They're a original part of a worldwide network of pyramids.
Yeah, there's one in Bosnia.
One in Bosnia.
Yeah.
A series of 64 in Crimea.
Yeah.
Under the ground. A series of huge ones in Antarctica that are so high they're sticking above a 1 mile thick ice sheet.
Wow.
They're still above the ice sheet. You have massive amounts of them buried all over the United States, the mounds. Those are not, you have them in Peru and other places where there's what look like dirt mounds that are pyramidal, that have pyramids inside them, like the one they uncovered in China. That's massive. They are an interconnecting network that allow for free energy. And if you went into the chamber of the resonance chamber, it's resonant, has a resonant frequency. If you go in there and you hit that frequency, you can actually see things start to literally disappear in front of you. And at that frequency, you can sit in the chair. They made it later into sarcophagus, the Cabal.
Yeah.
You could sit in a chair and have telepathic communication with anyone, anywhere else in another one. So it was a communication network. Plus, at the right time of the year, it was built. The pyramid in Giza was built so that it aligned with Sirius.
Yeah, I've seen it. The Orion.
Yep. At noon, it would shine in through the corridor, going down at the exact right angle to frame the star in the sky at noon. On the summer and winter, or I forget, one of the two solstices, sorry. It would frame the star so you could see it in the sky in the middle of the day. And so it would channel that energy in, not channel it in the term of channeling, but let's say it would bring that energy, focus it into the central of that chamber. And then that whole chamber, including the Queen's chamber on top and the chamber underneath the pyramid, there's another pyramid inverted, upside down under the ground. And in that pyramid, you would create a bi-wave. In other words, you create a standing bar wave, and then you would create a U-form or cubic field. You're at the foci of that field. The one above and the one below would create a foci like in an ellipse, where a circle has a center, and an ellipse has two foci. So it would then create a resonance between the two and help a being ascend. It would help increase their resonant frequency to help aid in ascension.
Seems like a huge structure. Were they doing it with a lot of people at the same time?
That's why it's called a pyra.
Yeah.
Meaning in fire, mid in the middle, a fire in the middle that would cause the fire of the Word of God to be focused into you to help ascension.
Okay.
At the right time, you could actually communicate directly to the throne of God, just like the Arks of the Covenant do. They have a mercy seat that when they were focused at the right time, at the right place on earth, and opened with the right certain words, vibrations, sounds, light, and everything, they are a device to connect the person sitting in the mercy seat, mercy to God, directly to the throne of God that's in the central sun, SGRA, as NASA calls it, stellar gravitational radio anomaly, as the Sumerians called it, Shigra. It's at the center of that sun that all of the galaxies in the entire universe rotate around. The universe also being the Mercabic field, the U4 Tauri. So you're now directly communicating to the central point of all that is. And so it's a multi-functional device originally, before the Earth got tilted.
When I went there, I did something a bit naughty, actually. I don't know if this is good or bad. There's a guard at the bottom, and I bribed the guard and said, don't send their money up there. I'm going to go up there by myself. So I got up in the main chamber and tuned in a bit, and I did. I could feel there was a blockage, but it kind of was coming in and coming out. It's a bit like an old radio, you're picking up something from Berlin, and it would fade in and fade out. So it's an interesting point, that. Gene, I'm going to wrap this up, but because... Gene, you put your speaker on quiet for a second. Did you do that deliberately? There you go.
I always do that when another person's speaking to give you the floor.
I can't even imagine where we're going to go next time with this, but let's just do one more question. Let's get a good one now. What can I think of next? Well, I'm actually going to do two, because the Queen of Denmark has abdicated. What's the real story behind that?
Yes, because the alliance is at work.
I figured that.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of people having to abdicate or step down or be removed. So Macron is in that process.
Yeah.
Where there's another person from the Young Global Leader group of where they select the people that are going to run the world governments, a bunch of talking heads that don't have they believe the narrative that they shovel out. I mean, these people really believe it. It's like, you really believe this Van der Leyen, that Ukraine has beaten a country 28 times bigger, the biggest country on earth, and they've taken half of what that country took from them back? You really believe that, do you?
Yeah, I mean, all of Africa, they're all throwing the towel in. Gene, let's get you back on a regular basis. It's been absolutely thrilling, amazing. My head's going to be buzzing tonight. I probably won't sleep very much. So let's have you back on every couple of weeks if you've got time, because I know my audience would love this. The live audience, it goes out tomorrow in all of the syndications, so there's a huge audience that are going to see this.
Oh, we could try to do once a month. I'm so busy. I don't know about
once a month, yeah, whatever. I'm happy with that. But it's been a pleasure finally catching up with actually a bit of my hero, I would definitely say, only because the topics and the knowledge that you've gained, and you're so detailed about it. It's absolutely fantastic talking to you. So we'll set up another show for the sake of the audience. And until next time, Gene, thank you so much for sharing 60 years, I'm guessing, of your frontline knowledge and with the audience tonight, the questions were just coming so fast, but I think this is going to be one of my top shows simply because of the content and the various subjects that we've covered that so many people wanted to know the answers to. So thank you so much, Gene. Anything you'd like to add? Tell us where people can go to your website and see some of your other work.
I'll just say hi to the many people in the chat. I know many of them. Thank you for being here.
Oh, good. That's good. You have the same people. That's great.
Yeah. And then thank you, David, for having me on your platform. It's a honor, really.
It's the other way around, my friend. It's my honor. And I hope we can do this really soon. And thank you very much. I'll send you all the links, guys. If you have any questions, let's save them for next time, because I don't think this is going to be the one and only with the knowledge basis that you have, buddy. It's phenomenal. So thank you so much. And thank you, folks, for joining us. I hope that you got as much out of this show that I did. And I can't wait to talk to you next time. So until then, Gene, take care. Stay safe, stay strong, keep pushing back, keep doing what you're doing.
Answering your last question, people can find me at my website as GeneDecode.org. There's a deep dive section where you can subscribe for $7 a month, a little less than a quarter a day. Lots of decodes and information in there. I have a Rumble, RealGeneDecode. That's it, nothing else. If you contact me, you want to contact me, my Gmail, that is the only way I ever give out, either that or through my blastforservice.org free website. You can contact us there, or you can go to ColoSensei64, that's a Gmail, and there's a